Hi, I'm Grant. I'm a Midlands-based photographer here in the UK, and in this video I'm going to talk about my recent reintroduction to film photography and my journey so far. Now I've shot my first 50 rolls of film, so let's get into it. So I'm of the age where I've got distinct memories of using film cameras, from the family SLR to various disposable cameras, and dropping the film off at the local chemist to get developed. However, like most, I switched to digital cameras as soon as the technology became available. First with various compact point and shoots, or digicams as they're often referred to today, and then onto various smartphones before getting an iPhone. However, it wasn't until my honeymoon back in 2012 where I felt like I needed to get my first proper camera. That trip and this camera reignited the passion for photography, and it's been a slippery slope ever since. So I actually started shooting with Nikon DSLRs for several years before picking up my first feature film camera. From the retro design and tactile controls to the film simulations, it reminded me of film. However, film simulations weren't enough, and it weren't long before I wanted to try out the real thing. So my first steps on this journey was actually with the feature film Instax system. Fun, but not quite scratching that itch. So I then decided to pick up a simple point and shoot film camera. It's essentially a plastic, not very fantastic point and shoot camera, but importantly it allows you to use any 35mm film, so it's perfect for beginners like me. However, it weren't long before I wanted a bit more control, so I picked up a Ricoh GR1s. It's a premium compact point and shoot camera with a fixed 28mm lens, and importantly it fits in your pocket. I was already a Ricoh GR shooter, already owning the GR3X digital camera, so this seemed like a logical choice for me. So I delved into eBay and picked up this near mint example from Japan. It's perfect as an everyday carry or travel camera, and I would really recommend it despite the slightly unreliable electronics in these now due to their age. However, like many photographers, gear acquisition syndrome struck and I ended up looking at expensive cameras online before picking up my first Leica, the Leica MP. Timeless design, fully mechanical and beautiful to use, and it's now taken over as my main film camera. I will post a dedicated video on the channel in the future, so do stick around if you'd like to hear my thoughts on this. So on the journey so far, I've shot a fairly modest 50 rolls of film across 9 different film stocks, with my favourites being Kodak Gold 200 for colour, Cinestill 800T for low light, and Kodak Tri-X 400 for black and white. I'll share a few more examples on the screen now of some of my favourite shots. In terms of film development and scanning, I've been using Analogue Wonderland here in the UK. They've got a really good website and mobile app, and their pricing is quite competitive, and overall they've been really reliable for me. It sounds cliche, but in a world of instant gratification and digital screens, shooting film really does force you to slow down, particularly when using a fully manual camera. And I've really enjoyed this part of the process and being more mindful with my photography. And with only 36 exposures on a roll of film, you do think carefully before pressing that shutter. It's rewarding when you nail it, but frustrating when you don't, particularly given the cost. But that is part of the charm of shooting film. You never quite know what you're going to get. And of course, the tactile process of loading the film, clicking the shutter, and advancing the film lever until you reach the end of that roll. It all makes each shot feel special. And receiving those scans and looking over the negatives instantly takes me back to the moment where I took the photo, in a way that digital just doesn't quite compete. So I've spent quite a bit of time talking about camera gear, and I guess that's inevitable with any photography related content. But the camera you choose doesn't matter too much, as the film choice is the biggest influencing factor on the final result. However, I do believe the choice of camera has a big influence on the overall experience you'll get from shooting film. Let's face it, the experience is partly why we choose to shoot film, and using some of those interesting and different cameras from over the years. And whilst I appreciate not everyone will be willing to invest in a camera system like a Leica, the feeling of using a all-metal, fully mechanical camera, it just feels different to using a fully electronic one, but only you can decide if different also equals better. So what's the catch? Well, for starters, film photography isn't cheap, and on my fairly modest journey so far, I think I've spent around £550 on film and £700 on development, which when you average it out over the time period, it isn't too bad, but that will soon add up over a lifetime of shooting film. And that is also why I'm considering looking at home scanning options, just to help reduce the cost slightly, but also so I can fully immerse myself in the overall process. So the look, feel and experience of shooting film is unmatched in my opinion, but you can get close to the film look using various presets, with plenty to choose from, some better than others. And I'll share a few examples on the screen now where I've shot film and digital side by side just to give you a visual comparison. But whilst film simulation can be effective, it isn't the real deal. And looking back, that's exactly why I started this film journey in the first place, to achieve the authentic film look and enjoy the process along the way. And that's super important with any creative pursuit. I'll keep shooting film for my personal work and travel, but it will serve as a companion to my digital photography, mainly due to the recurring costs, but also for reliability reasons where I can't afford to mess up, or for any paid work. But if you're still on the fence yourself about starting your own film photography journey, I would still really recommend it, because you can pick yourself up a point and shoot camera like I showed you earlier on and a roll of film for less than £50 and you'll be up and running in no time. And you can give it a try for yourself to see if you enjoy it. But just be aware of the inevitable risk of getting sucked in and spending all your money on film. So thank you for your time today and watching the video, particularly if you've stuck around until the end. I really do appreciate it. And please do hit that like button and consider subscribing so you don't miss my next upload. And tell me in the comments, how did you get into film photography and what's been your experience so far? I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, keep shooting, and I'll see you in the next one.